Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this first day of Advent. It's a beautiful day outside here. The sun is shining, which is nice. And hopefully you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, however it is that you celebrated that. And I'll start by reading. But in those days following that distress, the sun and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory, and he will send his angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Now learn this lesson from the fig tree. As soon as its twigs get tender and its leaves come out, you know that summer is near. Even so, when you see these things happening, you know that is near, right at the door. Truly, I tell you, this generation will certainly not pass away until all these things have happened. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will never pass away. But about that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard. Be alert. You do not know when that time will come. It's like a man going away. He leaves his house and puts his servants in charge, each with their assigned task, and tells the one at the door to keep watch. Therefore, keep watch, because you do not know when the owner of the house will come back, whether in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or at dawn. If he comes suddenly, do not let him find you sleeping. What I say to you, I say to everyone. Watch. And that's kind of what the sermon is about today. It's that concept of staying awake. Keep awake. Stay alert. Have you ever stayed up all night? I'm sure many of you have. I know I have. Christ calls to his disciples and the whole church to keep awake, to keep alert. This idea of keeping awake is at the heart of Advent, a time of waiting and watching. But it also calls to mind a very human thing, to stay awake when you would normally be sleeping. New parents certainly know what it means to keep awake, to be up in the middle of the night with a child. Youth leaders everywhere know what it's like to stay up all night when they've had to endure the crucible of a lock-in. I know Pastor Alec and I have done our share of lock-ins. That time when the church is overrun by teenagers for an entire night, they stay up playing games and making mischief while everyone else tries to keep from falling asleep, because woe unto those who fall asleep during a lock-in. You never know what you're going to wake up looking like when you do. But there are so many other professions that require keeping awake through the night. Paramedics, firefighters, police, and other first responders, military personnel, and hospital night staff must keep awake during the wee hours of the night. Some cleaning, there are cleaning companies that do their work at night. Restaurants, retail, and factory staff must keep vigil, working through the night to complete their work. At some point, every person has a cause to be awake through the night, whether for work, for play, for a child, or an ailing loved one, for an emergency, or for just a long night out. Depending on the circumstances, it can be either exhausting or exhilarating, or sometimes a combination of both. Many people keep awake to accomplish something. And there's a documentary out there called The Barkley Marathons, The Race That Eats Its Young. It's a very fascinating documentary. It's a very fascinating race. It's a 100-mile plus race. It's an endurance race that happens in the hills of Tennessee. It includes 5 miles. It's a 5-mile loop of 20 miles through the. And though the participants will tell you that the loop is actually closer to a marathon of like about 26 miles, and the race itself is 1/3 on trails and 2/3 off trail, and the runners often get lost. The loop goes over mountains and through huge briars, and over the course of the race, runners gain and lose almost 60,000 feet of elevation, for a total of 120,000 feet of elevation change. So completing this race takes 5 loops, and almost no one ever finishes this race. Runners run day and night, and they have only 60 hours to complete the race. If they sleep at all, it's only for an hour or two over the course of that 60 hours. Talk about keeping awake. And the thing with this is that there's no exact start time to this race. In fact, the whole process, starting with the application itself being a secret, the mailing address changes every year, and the application fee is $1.60 and has been since the beginning of this race. And the thing is, you know you've been entered into the race because you get a condolence letter. I mean, that is very, very odd, very strange race. But the thing is, there's another fee that you have to pay on the day of the race. And it's usually an article of clothing, like a white button-up shirt or a sock. And runners are told to show up on a particular day and time, but the race start time varies according to the race director's whim. A conch shell, you know, that big old shell that you see in the islands, that's used to blow to let them know that the race is going to begin within a 12-hour window. So it's not even saying, hey, the race is starting now. It's just saying, hey, you've got 12 hours to kind of be thinking about it. So then the race starts, and it could start at any time during that 12-hour period. In fact, some years the races started at midnight. Most times they do start in the daytime, but every now and then they'll throw in a start time of the middle of the night. Keep awake. Keep alert. During that race, you have to keep awake and keep alert. Gary Lazarus, I guess it's Gary Lazarus Cantrell. He's called Lazarus, but he's the co-creator of this race. And he says that people who have trouble with any of these various last-minute or informal race details are not going to do well on the course. Because no matter what, it's not going to happen the way you planned it. So how many of us have had our plans go exactly the way that we had planned? I know mine are always set off course. Nothing I plan. I can plan and plan and plan. And, it doesn't take much to throw it off. And there it goes, all your plans just right out the door. But this essentially captures both the spirit of Advent and the theme of our gospel reading today. Keep awake, be alert, and remember, this is going to be difficult. And it's not going to happen the way you planned it. At the beginning of this chapter in Mark, Jesus is walking out of the temple in Jerusalem with his disciples when they point up and exclaim, "What large stones and what large buildings!" And most of these disciples are just kind of country, they're rural guys. And it's like many people who go to a large city, like New York City, and they look up and they see these large buildings. And it's just so impressive. They've never seen anything like it. And I know when I was in Israel and we went to the temple, and I think I said the same thing. Look at those large stones. Look at this huge temple. I mean, I was just so impressed by that. But Jesus cryptically tells them, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone will be left here upon another. All will be thrown down." If you imagine someone saying this in Times Square today, you're approximating the effect that Jesus had by saying this. He's telling them that disaster is coming, and it has a chilling effect on the disciples. They're intrigued, naturally, and want to know more about all of this. Basically, when is it going to happen? Stay alert. Jesus alludes to the timeline because he knows someone will be trying to map out the moment. It says in Mark 13:32 and 33, "But concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on guard, keep awake, for you do not know when the time will come." Jesus is talking specifically about the fall of the temple, but he's also providing us lessons and insight into the second coming. He says, no one knows when this will happen, not even me. What stronger warning could we get that trying to predict the apocalypse is pointless? Jesus himself doesn't know when that's going to be. He doesn't offer us any ciphers or riddles about how to predict the exact date this will happen. His directive for us is simple: stay awake and stay alert. This is the best approach when looking at some of the stranger scriptures around the second coming. Jesus is returning, so be ready. Look at the context in this passage. Jesus spends about 45 seconds talking about apocalyptic matters. You turn the page, and he spends hours and days talking with the apostles at the Last Supper, instituting the day-to-day reality of what it means to be God's people. What's more important? Stay alert. Be ready. Live your life in hope. That's what's important. What Jesus does give us, though, is an image of his ascension to the throne. That's what he's pointing out. That's what he wants them to see. It says in Mark 13:26, and then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. This verse offers us a strange image, which is a reference back to Daniel about the powerful esoteric character of the Son of Man. This is often misread as a picture of Jesus coming down to earth in a thundercloud at the second coming. That's going to happen in some form, but this is a picture of Jesus returning to the Father and taking his rightful seat at the Father's right hand. In other words, this is Jesus' coronation as king, which happened in the first century. He is the king now, and he will be the king then. Reality will never be the same. The relationship with God and humanity is changed fundamentally. We await the day when this is fully expressed with Christ's second coming. Yet we also live in kingdom reality now, every day. Keep awake, Jesus says. And like Lazarus from the Barkley Marathon says, it's not going to happen the way you planned it. And as Christmas approaches, many of us begin or continue as me. I have had my Christmas decorations up for about 2 weeks now, and my lights. Our preparations to celebrate Jesus' birth have so many people running around trying to get things all done. Clergy, musicians, people singing in choirs, they're making their preparations. However that looks this year, we're never really sure. Everything is in a constant state of flux with this pandemic that we're going through. But preparations are still happening. Services may be recorded, as this one is today, and will be sent out via the internet. Smaller groups may have the advantage of meeting in person with safety protocols in place. Not really sure how safe it is really anymore. How our family gatherings look this year will be quite different as well. But Christmas is going to come. It will come, even in a pandemic. The coming of Christmas creates in most of us a sense of both longing and urgency. We call ourselves to keep alert, to keep awake, to work hard to get ready for this holiday that's coming, whether we like it or not. In many years, it doesn't happen the way we plan. Here in Eugene, we're in our new building. We had all these grand plans of being able to decorate this building for the first time in 20 years that we've wanted to do this, to put our own stamp on it, and we were making our plans and our preparations, and then 2020 hits. And so now things are scaled back, but we know that it's for the best, and we know that next year we'll go all out. In Salem, We look forward on this weekend to being able to put up our beautiful big tree that we put up that reaches the ceiling, but that won't be happening this year as well. And so those plans just have to be set aside for now. We just have to adapt and adjust and keep awake. We have to stay on our toes. As we stress over the coming holiday, Advent calls us to prepare for something much bigger than the yearly arrival of Christmas. Advent calls us to pay attention to the world around us, even as it is racked with sickness, suffering, violence, hunger, and death. The first Sunday of Advent begins a story of cosmic proportions, with the sun being darkened and the stars falling from heaven. Advent, in all the readings from the RCL today, remind us that our ancestors once called out for a Savior, and that we in the church wait for the return of one. We wait, we hope, knowing nothing other than to keep working, keep watching, and keep awake. In our world torn by pain and division, we look at the pain all around us, and we wonder, how long can we endure this? How long do we have to suffer like this? How long will people in our own country and around the world have to live in fear in their communities, in their schools, and in their own homes? How long will we live at odds with our neighbors and endure divisions in our own families? How long will people have to endure violence and hunger and pain right up to our own doorstep? In our lowest moments, in our lowest points, we are often tempted to wonder, is it always going to be this way? Is nothing ever going to change? But this season that we begin today, Advent, has a presence that calls us to look deeper. It whispers to us urgently in that dead of winter, keep awake. It is a call of urgency and longing, but also a call of promise, because there is hope. Things will not always be as they are. Something is coming that is even bigger than Christmas. The world still waits for justice. The world still waits for peace. The world still waits for God. Like the Barclay marathoners and like the disciples, we wait in darkness, knowing that we cannot know the specifics. We can only stay ready for what we know is coming: opportunity, victory, and hope. Peace on earth. Advent whispers to us. It says the night is long and difficult, but the dawn is coming. And as Jesus said in Mark 13:37, he says, "And what I say to you, I say to all, keep awake." Amen.